Hello. There follows the video recording of a DJ taster workshop which we ran ahead of Tipple, which is Manchester's fortnightly swing social. This was to encourage new DJs to come forward. Whilst watching this video, do bear in mind that the mixer, which was somewhat unpredictable in its performance through the workshop, actually had to be replaced at the end of the workshop because it started to crackle and fade and die. Welcome everyone. I think everybody knows who I am, but I'm Kevin, and I'll just say a little bit about me, but aside from that, it's mostly not about me. But why am I qualified to run this workshop? Well, I've been dancing in Manchester for about 5 years. Doesn't really make me qualified. I'm still learning a lot about swing dancing and music, but this workshop is more today about the technology and how physically to be a swing dance DJ. I started DJing when I was a teenager, which was some time ago now, and take a seat, settle down. I've DJed professionally at events, clubs, weddings, bar mitzvahs, you name it. And I've also worked as a radio presenter for commercial radio and BBC radio. I've operated radio studios, I've operated radio studios and TV studios a lot over the years in my broadcast career. And I now run a technology company developing and supporting audio streaming applications for broadcast. So I know a little bit about audio, and I've DJed a lot over the years. We've only got an hour. Tipple starts at 6 o'clock, so it's going to be a whistle-stop tour of how to be a swing DJ, or an introduction, if you like. We can only scratch the surface in that hour. So think of it more as like with dancing, lifelong learning. This isn't about, I'm not going to tell you how to be a DJ in 55 minutes, but this is an introduction to something that hopefully you'll take and develop over the years alongside your dancing. So what do you need then to be a DJ? Well, a laptop. Essentially, these days, is your go-to bit of kit. I've brought a nice big one today, just so that you can see a little bit better. But what I tend to carry for swing DJing is that, which is a nicer size, little Windows laptop. It's touchscreen as well, which can be quite useful for pressing go and stop. And it's portable, because you don't necessarily, let's say you're going to a swing weekend and you're going to DJ at it, although you want to carry all the necessary kit, you don't necessarily want to lug massive big laptops and things. The benefit of the big screen, of course, is you can see a lot more, whereas on this it does get a little bit fiddly. You can use a tablet. Does anyone fancy the idea of DJing on a tablet? Yeah? You have DJed on a tablet, so how's it work for you?
Oh, I tend to make a playlist and playing, so
right.
It's fairly easy.
Yeah, and we'll talk a bit about this. What's the difference between, is that DJing? Well, no, it's not, is it? It's just turning up with a playlist and pressing play, which is legitimate for what it is, but I don't know if you can actually call it DJing. Did you put your hand up as well, Sab? Did you say you did this? Oh, you were just stretching, right, fine. Okay, so yeah, I would say in order of preference, the technology that you're going to use goes laptop, tablet, phone, and I'm not here to recommend the use of a phone for DJing today. One of the things Emily said when we were planning this workshop is she said some people have asked if you can show them how to be a DJ using a phone. Well, the answer is no. I can't tell you how to be a DJ using a phone, because it kind of goes back to the thing about running a playlist. It's perfectly legitimate to put a playlist on a phone and play it, and people can dance to it. Great. But are you DJing? No, not really. Do you look the part? No, not really. Does it look like you're taking the job seriously? And are you? I wouldn't want to have to manage a playlist for an evening on a phone, which is also my phoning device and texting device and Snapchat device, or whatever. I don't have a Snapchat account for the record, but the everything else device. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Generally, use a laptop. If you want to use a tablet, use a tablet. What else do you need with those things? Well, I would make sure definitely that I have my power supply for my laptop, because especially on a cheap Windows laptop like this, The battery probably isn't going to last long, and even if you think it is, don't rely on it lasting long. Always bring your power supply. Whilst we're talking about power, then it's probably not a bad idea to bring something like that, because you never know when you get to a venue what you've got in terms of power. So it's about, I mean, generally you'll be all right, but I like to be prepared. It's good to have extra stuff. These cables are probably the second most useful DJ tool after your laptop, because without it you're stuffed. What is it? It's a 3.5mm jack, and it goes into, I mean, we talked about phones, it will fit into the socket on your phone, which is good to know for if you're using it as a backup, but it will also go onto the headphone or line output on the side of your laptop, which is the first step to getting the audio out of your laptop into wherever it is that we're hearing it. And these are called, anyone know what these are called?
Phono. Yes!
Phono is the name, which is short for phonograph, of course, originally used on record players. So yeah, those are known as phono or RCA adapters. So what we have here is a mini jack to phono cable, and I normally bring 2 of them just in case something goes wrong. There's my other one. As it happens, there's I found loads around here today. I've got some props under the camera there. As it happens, there's loads here today because this venue have been wise, knowing that DJs run off with them and they break. So you can never have too many of these things. Put them on your Christmas list. Also, I carry a couple of these adapters, which generally you'll find most sound systems will have these phono inputs, but you might find, you probably recognise those off a guitar lead, for instance. These are called 1/4-inch jacks. I know I'm mixing metric and imperial, get over it. And what these do is change these to be able to go into a device that happens to take those. So also not a bad idea to carry those around. Generally assume that venues are going to have those. If a venue or an event has got a mixer that needs those, you can hope that somebody there has provided them for you. But never assume that the venue's going to have what you think you'll need, or indeed an event. Just because you're DJing at an event, don't assume they've got all the equipment set up properly. Because I mean, I would think about bringing more stuff than less stuff, because you never know when you're gonna save the day. Hi Max, welcome. Any questions so far?
Just thinking, because Naplin's is nearby and they're going out of business. Is it worth popping in, getting some
Yeah, use their loss to your gain. Yeah, maybe. The internet is also, I mean, Maplin are probably going out of business because they're notoriously overpriced for what they sell. So the internet is generally much cheaper for such stuff, or pound shops or whatever. But yeah, keep an eye out when you're in markets of pound shops and things, because they're always selling these, and you can pick them up for next to nothing. Good. What else might I bring? A USB. Max, have a chair. You're making the place look untidy. Take your coat off. Make it look like you're staying. Sorry. There's one here. Look. So another thing that I might think about bringing is a USB drive with, why might I bring a USB drive? Any thoughts on that? Like a little USB pen drive thing? Why might that be a good thing to carry?
Backup in case your laptop fails.
Yeah, so what would you put on it?
All your songs.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, all your songs. Which kind of brings us neatly onto the question of, well, what do you mean all my songs? I'm just going to use Spotify, aren't I? Why? I don't have any songs. I'm just going to DJ from Spotify. What do you think about DJing from Spotify? Is it a good idea, a bad idea?
I can't stand Spotify personally. So.
For any particular reasons? Because there are some good reasons to dislike Spotify and some good reasons to
I
like
can't get my head around it.
Right.
I'd just rather I know where I am with all my own collection and music.
Yeah, I agree. That's where I come from with. That's where I'm coming from with Spotify, really. If I've got all my music on here, and the internet connection in this building fails, or Spotify goes down, or whatever other similar thing might happen. Doesn't matter, does it? I've got everything self-contained on here, and if I've saved all my music to a USB drive that I can put into a friend's computer if they're kind enough to lend it to me in case I drop this on the floor, which if I keep doing this with it, a good chance that I will do soon, then you're confident that you're not relying on, I wouldn't rely on the internet or cloud-based solutions for anything important. So that's where I am with Spotify. Any other reasons to hate Spotify?
It's expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive if you don't want adverts coming on in between the songs, and if you're DJing at a swing event, I'm going to say you probably don't want adverts coming on between the songs. So yeah, there's a cost associated with it. I mean, spoiler alert, music is expensive. You know, I would say, save the money that you might spend on Spotify and spend it on buying Gordon Webster's latest album or whatever, because these people such as Gordon Webster are keeping the genre alive and recording music to today's standards, and keeping, traveling the world with musicians and that kind of thing is expensive, and recording bands is expensive. So if you do have a budget for this, and you will need some kind of budget, or potentially need a budget, then you're better off putting that budget towards supporting people within the swing dance world who are doing great things for the future of swing dance music. Other bands are available. Any questions on that? Any thoughts on that? Any reasons to like Spotify?
I think it's good if you're searching for new music or you've heard. I use Shazam a lot to kind of spot things, and then I check out what else they've done on Spotify, just have a listen. But I'm always a fan of paying the artists.
Yeah, quite. Yeah, I fully agree. Spotify don't pay much to the artists. They do a bit, but not as much as if you go and buy a CD or a download from Bandcamp. Is probably the best place to go if you're in terms of supporting the artist, and knowing that most of the music is going to go to the artist. So I think Spotify it's a useful tool to have in your arsenal if you've got all of the music that you've decided you might want to play on here, and then someone comes up and asks for a song that you don't have, and there's a really good argument for playing that song. You don't have to play requests, but if it's someone's birthday and they really want to hear a specific song, then you can use Spotify for that. Switch to Spotify to play that song, and then go back to your tried and trusted method of playing your music off your device. So I'll just go back. Oh, the other thing I've got on my list, I'll just go back a little bit here. The other thing I've got on my list of things that you might bring is a microphone. I like using a microphone, and I've got quite a loud voice. Often if you're at an event where the music's loud and then somebody tries to make an announcement, have your attention please. I think it's quite nice to have a microphone for that purpose, especially if you are softly spoken. But it's an extra tool to learn how to use. And I'm not saying go out and buy a microphone tomorrow, but further down your swing dance DJ career, maybe something to consider having a microphone. So I keep referring back to my notes here. I've got on my. Is there anything else that you might bring, by the way, while we're talking about things to bring? Max?
I forget the name of it, but it's something that lets you monitor.
Yeah, and we'll mention it in this workshop, but we're not going to go into detail on that in this workshop because we simply don't have time, and it's an introduction. But there is a way as a DJ to play music from one of your decks on your laptop whilst listening to another song in your headphones, because you might want to listen to the next song that you're going to play whilst people are dancing to the existing song. How do you do that? You've only got one headphone socket, one output on your computer. Well, there are ways within the software to send one song to the speakers and another song to your headphones. If you're carrying headphones, that might be a thing to have on your list, a pair of headphones. that generally requires an additional device that you take as a, more of a professional solution of taking the audio from your computer than that, and from that professional device, which is an extra box plugged into your laptop, you can plug your headphones in, then plug the wire to the speakers, and we call it a USB audio interface, or some people might call it a splitting device or a pre-fading device. We're not going to talk about it any more than that in this workshop because it's too much information. But yes, you as a pro swing DJ, you might think about carrying such a device. Any other things? Should we move on? Cool. And we are going to. I'm not just going to stand and talk all the time. We are going to try and make this a little bit more of a practical workshop. By the way, you'll be pleased to know. So I'll just check on my notes about. I've got a heading that says, "Can I DJ using my phone?" I'll just check that I haven't covered. Check that I have covered everything on there. So yeah, it doesn't look like you're serious about DJing if you're kind of looking down at it like this. It essentially looks like you're texting, doesn't it? And it doesn't look like you're the DJ if you're standing there looking down at your phone. To build a playlist and run it on your phone is easy enough, but to manage that playlist on this little screen whilst you've got texts coming in is going to be quite difficult. So you really want the flexibility of a larger device to be managing that playlist. Notifications on your phone are going to be an obvious issue, and I have been at events, and you've probably been at events where music has been played off a phone, and halfway through a song you hear a ping because an email or a WhatsApp message has arrived. You can disable those things, but I tend to find you never quite disable them properly. You always miss some app that's going to pop up an alert, and even if you manage to turn the sounds off, you often find it still dips the music a little bit. So just don't. It's a great backup, if you do drop your laptop, which I'm bound to do by the end of the workshop. It's a great backup, but don't rely on it as your main tool. Right, let's talk about the equipment chain then, because you've got, so this is your source, your thing that's got your music on, and where do we ultimately want to get it to? The speaker, so is almost there. People's ears, yeah. You were one step away there. But yeah, no, you're right. The speaker's there for, so we can get it into people's ears. And I mean that's it is an important point that you are, because the speaker might be here, but the people who are dancing might be over there. So it is a consideration, isn't it? It's actually, you want to be thinking more about, am I reaching the people's ears more than am I reaching the speaker, which I've seen like in the corner of a venue at some events, well away from where the dancers are. So how do we get from there to there? Well, let's take a look, shall we? Do you want to stand up and gather around? So this is our laptop, our source. If I unplug the socket on the side, the headphone socket, and press play, there's the music. It's coming out of my laptop speakers. Can we dance through it? One of us in our kitchen, just about. Does it sound great? No, it doesn't. So we need to get it to the ears via the speakers and the other equipment. So where does it go next? Well, the easiest way to do this is to follow the wire. But it's never that easy, because when I arrived in this venue half an hour ago, there was no power to this. This is the mixer. There was no power to this. There was no wire from the mixer to the wall. This and associated cables were down here. So you never know what state you're going to find the equipment in. The venue staff might be able to help you, but don't rely on them. Try and get used to knowing how this stuff works. So you can follow the cables, assuming the cables are already attached. So let's follow them, shall we? As they are attached. We'll plug that back in. Where's it going? It's going here, and it's going into the back of this device, which is a mixer, not a food mixer, but an audio mixer. This is quite a complicated version of an audio mixer. You can get them far bigger, of course, that you use for mixing bands, and you can get far smaller ones that are quite handy for a swing event without needing all of these controls. It looks quite intimidating because it's got loads of knobs on it. The thing to remember with such devices is you don't need most of the controls on this. So the thing to do is to start working out which of these controls are important to you and ignore the rest of them. So for a start, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 channels here. They're vertical channels and everyone's pretty much the same. We've only got one source, one laptop, so we don't need 5 of them. So we can suddenly start looking at one of the inputs. But the one that we'll look at is the one that our laptop's plugged into. If we look on the back, it says input 4, and it's into the line socket, not the phono socket. Now this is going to confuse you, because we said earlier, what did we say that these sockets were called earlier? The phono socket. So which one of these sockets do you think you'll plug it into, line or phono? Wrong. Because, as we mentioned, phono is short for phonograph, and it's called that because these used to be used for record players. So in this context, on the back of here, phono is actually referring to a record player. We're not plugging in a record player, we're plugging in something with a line level output, and therefore we plug our phono plugs into the line socket. Clear as mud? Good. So we know that it's into the line socket on input 4, so we can now look on our device, find input 4, which is this one, and at the top of this channel we've got a little switch that switches between phono and line. So to press it in, we select line. I'll demonstrate what it does if I play some music. There's the music. If I switch that, it's essentially turn it off. So that one switch can jeopardize your whole event if you don't know where to look to switch that to line. I'll show you why we don't plug it into the phono socket, because it's expecting a low-level record player input. That's how it sounds. It's expecting a low signal, and we're not. We're giving it a higher amplified signal out of our laptop. And now if we switch back to line, there it is. Any questions so far? There will be notes on this and hopefully the video to refer back to. That's our mixer. We'll look at it in a little bit more detail. Let's just keep going down the chain for now. Let's keep following the wires. That's obviously the power, so we can, which wasn't connected when I arrived. So as long as we know it's there and we know not to electrocute ourselves by spilling water in it, we can ignore it. And do think a little bit, we haven't talked much about health and safety. Health and safety should have been the first topic in the workshop, of course. Please don't die as a DJ. Obvious things like don't put drinks on top of the equipment, don't put drinks near the equipment. Somebody will come to talk to you and put their drink there. Remove it and put it somewhere else. If another DJ's left drinks on here from their set, don't leave them here, put them somewhere else, because liquid and electric stuff doesn't mix well and it doesn't end well for you. Okay, that's the health and safety stuff out of the way for now. So, it's a dodgy wire somewhere in here, so it made a buzz. So we keep following the wires. These are the wires coming out of the output socket on the back. Where might these be going? Yes, they are going to, so Mike said amplifier, Mark points to the speaker. Mark, you're right, ultimately, but just like going to your ears via the speaker, there's something else on the way. So these wires are going into actually on a socket down the wall. Again, weren't attached when I arrived this evening, they are now, and that goes up here and disappears into the ceiling. We're not going to go into the ceiling today, so we're going to assume that those wires are then going to the amplifiers, which are actually elsewhere in this building. What do the amplifiers do? Why don't we just plug into the speaker? Yeah, it'll be too quiet. The signal that comes from here is quite low. The signal comes from here is still quite low. And in order to get it to a level that we can actually hear it through a speaker like that, it's got to be amplified. It's an electronic device, and it multiplies the electrical signal that's being sent from this to the speaker to a level that can drive the speaker, because the speaker's going to go like that to make the sound. And then that's going to make your eardrum wobble so that you can hear the sound. And in order for that to wobble, we need to send some extra electricity with the signal to that speaker for it to make a sound. I'm simplifying it, but that's essentially it. There's an amplifier somewhere in this building. We'll never get to see it, but there's another step in the chain between the amplifier and the speaker, which could also jeopardize your event. Anybody care to guess what or where it is? Some people probably know. No?
The cables.
There are cables, there are wires all the way on this chain through this extra thing that I'm talking about. Let's go and look at it, shall we? I'll put some music on.
Is it a mixer?
No, it's past the mixer, so follow me. Try and get to a position where you can see this. Every venue is going to be a little bit different, but here, up in amongst all the air conditioning controls and things, is a very important knob. I'm not talking about me, by the way, but I am very important. It's a volume control, so I've turned it down and the music's gone off. Turn it up and it's got louder. I'm going to leave it about 1/4 and there's a dodgy, in moving those cables, can you hear we've got a dodgy connection somewhere now? So these are the challenges that we'll come across. I'm going to put it at 1/4 to give me a bit of headroom, because if at some point I need to get some more level out of the system, I know that I've got some spare slack here that I can use to turn it up. There's something else here that can scupper things, because we've got various controls. Ground floor DJ, off. As it happens,
Yeah, it doesn't actually do it.
in this instance it's not doing anything. It must be the way it's wired today. The volume control is doing something, but that control on top actually isn't doing anything.
Is it patching it downstairs?
As well, sometimes.
No, it is. This is the control for here, but for whatever reason it's out of circuit. But I'm going to leave it on first floor DJ anyway, just to be safe. So back over here,
Sorry, Kelly, what's that called again?
a knob, with a volume control, bar staff control, bar staff, venue staff override level control. It's a knob. It's a volume control. Call it what you want, baby. Right. Has that crackle gone?
Not quite, no.
So let's see if we can figure out where it is. It could be anywhere. It could be. Right. This is where it messes with your mind further, because there's a master control volume on here. Master control is turned all the way down. If I turn the music up, I can hear the music. Why could that be? Well, it's a mystery.
Magic.
Georgia, Georgia, the whole day through, just a whole sweet song keeps Georgia on my.
For now, let's pretend that's not the case, because that's going to take a bit of investigation. But these are the kind of things that you will come across. Things that don't quite make sense, and that could confuse you completely. So you've got to kind of say, all right, well, I can hear it, so I'll ignore that. But that is a bit of a mystery.
It's like a headphone.
The output is coming from the main mixer output here,
Yeah.
and going to the sound system. So let's not get bogged down on that at this stage, and let's move on. What I would do if I've got a crackle like that, I would do that. Wiggle the fader a bit, because there might be some dust inside. It could be dust. Dust. Sorry, did I just deafen you? I apologize. I'm going to turn the music down this time and do it. Yeah, that is taking effect. So, physical dust in these faders can affect things. So if you do that, it's likely to clean it out. And think about every other control on this that the music might go through, and also have a wiggle of them. What you could do is say, I want to eliminate this channel, channel 4, because I think that might be where the problem is. So I'm going to go to line input 3 on the back now, which is on this one. Select line on here. It's probably worse, that one. Would you say? I'm going to say...
The crackle's gone, but it sounds muffled.
Yeah.
So let's try another one. Let's try input 5. Okay, that's our favourite. Does it sound clean? I mean, bear in mind it's a recording from early last century, you know, early to mid last century, so, you know, it ain't going to be perfect. And I keep moving this thing that's got these wires on the back, which isn't actually going to help. You know, maybe there's a dodgy connection in there, so bear this in mind. Okay, any questions at this stage? Is everyone's mind blown yet? No? Brilliant. Okay. So, our equipment chain, let's just review it. This is our source, yeah? Where does it go next? Who said mixer? Yes. It goes to the mixer via what?
Leads.
This lead, not the city leads. That would be a long wire. So it goes via that wire into the mixer. Then where? To the wall. Then where? The ceiling. Then where? The knob by the bar. Then where? Somewhere else after the knob by the bar, to the amplifiers, which is somewhere else in the building. Finally, well, not finally, then to the speaker, and finally to your ears. Yes, okay, great. That's our signal path. It's important to understand that signal path in order to find where the problem is. You know, unless you strategically think through where is my music going from here to get to people's ears, then it's difficult to. And if you've done everything and tried everything at this end and it's still not working, the one step outside of this room is that amplifier. You can go and ask the venue staff to check that that the amplifiers are turned on. Sometimes the amplifiers are turned down because they feel they can't trust the DJ, so they turn the amplifiers down in the staff office or whatever.
So
and
to blow amplifiers up.
yeah, exactly. You can blow them by sending too much signal to them. Of course, we're better than that, so we can ask them to give us a little bit more headroom down there where the amplifiers are, to give us a bit more control over our volume level, so that we're not pushing everything here in terms of level and feel like you don't have enough element of control.
In this venue, the amps are in the office, and we had a problem when Georgie was DJing last. The amps weren't turned up properly, so that was what the problem was, why the volume was so low on that night.
There you go. Prime example. So the mixer is your friend. Does it look daunting? Do you feel daunted by it? No, everyone. No, fine. This is good. Because you shouldn't. But there are a lot of things on it, and I've already demonstrated this evening that there's something slightly confusing about it. So shall we look in a little bit more detail at the mixer? You might want to. Do you want to gather around? Or you want to stay? You might. There's a lot of you. Stay where you are. So now we've plugged into this channel 5. Because we've only got the one computer attached, we can discount this and we can discount all of those. Suddenly there are a lot more controls not to worry about on this device. So let's look at our channel strip, which we are using, and let's go from the top and work out what we might be interested in. This is an auxiliary level control. Is it useful for us in this instance? No. So we don't need to worry about that.
Why is it not? Why not?
What is it?
It's beyond the scope of this hour-long workshop, but it's not useful to us for this. It's for sending to another speaker or device, for instance. Max?
Will this be on the exam?
Maybe. There's another button associated with that. You could ignore it. What does this little white switch do here? Yes, which one do we want it on from a laptop?
What do we want?
Yes, what would we want it on if we were plugging in our vintage turntable? Yes, brilliant. The next one below is called gain. This is very useful to us. What does it mean? Max?
Like the volume before you put any effects and stuff on it.
Yeah, it's a volume control. You don't need to think about it much more than that. It's the volume of this going into the mixer before this handy little fader here. This is the most useful thing for adjusting the volume on the fly. If you start a song and it's too loud, you can turn it down a bit. If you start a song and it's too quiet, you can turn it up a bit. What if you get to the top?
Turn up something else.
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah. We've left ourselves, do you remember we left ourselves a bit of headroom over on the wall over there? I'd say we should put our main mix here to about 1/4 past. I'd leave my output of my computer at say 80%. I'd leave myself a little bit to go everywhere, so you can always make up the slack. But the most useful tool for that is actually this gain control, which is giving you, it's amplifying the signal from the laptop into this channel, and it's a really useful tool. So if we once again play Anita O'Day and Gene Krupa, I'll start with the gain low, I'll put that to the top. Once there are loads of people in here dancing, is it going to be enough? Probably not. So I would start with my gain much higher on that channel, so that now when I push this up, I can damage everybody's hearing. So gain, really useful. Set that first and then adjust with this. Tweak the gain as necessary if you need more level. Everyone clear on that? Good.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I don't know the English word for it, but if you have a microphone and put it too close to the speaker and the gain is too loud, you don't get that. The feedback. Can you get that with this sort of, without microphone?
No. You could with an old style record player, because you could turn up the output from the needle enough so that the vibration because that's all of this is vibration, the vibration from the speakers could come back through the needle of the record player and cause a feedback loop, which is what's happening, is that sound's coming out of the speaker, it's going into the microphone, it's coming out of the speaker, it's going into the microphone, and it causes that loop, which comes out as a howl or a squeal. And you're right, if you're using a microphone, be very careful, err on the side of caution with your microphone level, and gradually edge it up. And if you're talking into a microphone, if I was talking into a microphone here, I would stand here with the sound coming in front of me from the speaker there, rather than standing here with the microphone where it's much likely to give me some feedback. Good question. Okay, so what else have we got on this channel strip? We've got controls that say high, mid 2 and low. Anyone hazard a guess as to what they might be?
Those are the frequencies of the sound?
Yes, exactly, yeah. Frequencies, they're called varying things. What might you call them? Treble, bass. What else might you call it?
Pitch.
What?
Pitch.
No, not quite pitch. What did you say? Yeah, middle, yeah. There are general terms for these things. EQ, which stands for equalizer. Sometimes you put a word in front of equalizer. Graphical equalizer. So all of these things mean the same thing. It's adjusting the frequencies that you hear. Why might that be useful when you're DJing swing music?
Different rooms?
Different
Rooms?
Yeah. If you're DJing in a room where it's really boomy and the bass tends to get rattling around in different corners, you can turn the bass down. I would say it's more about, it does make a difference in rooms, but it's often more about the source, the music you're playing. If you're playing a scratchy old track that's hardly got any bass on it, you can try and compensate for that by turning up the bass. And I'll have a play with it. And so everything's what I would call flat at the moment. I would always start with everything flat at the 12 o'clock position, because otherwise, where do you go if you don't know that you're starting in a neutral position? As it happens, I think that's quite a nice. I don't overthink this stuff, but I think that's quite a nice cross range of frequencies. If the bass was down, it would sound like it really was the 1930s. Often you find that on old swing recordings, the horns are really painfully loud. So that's where the high comes in really useful. See, they starting to sound more muffled now. We've lost some of the higher frequencies. A lot of this stuff is personal preference. But I think it's most important for pain. You know, especially when the horns are making your ears bleed. Just have a play around with it and see what you can do to improve it. There is a phrase in sound engineering, an old phrase, that you can't polish a turd. So you can't do magic with these controls, but they do help a little bit to balance out and control.
Can you roll that turd in glitter though?
You can roll it in glitter, which is essentially what we're doing here. So that's those controls. There's another button down here which you could be playing around with these and thinking they're not actually making any difference. There's a clue as to what that switch is. Any idea what that switch might be?
On or off.
It's the equalizer on and off button. So yeah, so if I put loads of wacky EQ in and then turn the EQ off, it goes back to being flat, which if you're playing around with it is a good way to compare and contrast. You can play around with the EQ and then to go back to the original and think, oh actually that sounds better as it was, I'll just put it back to flat. Any other questions on EQ?
Would you say it's better to do it on your computer in your program or on the mixer?
I like the analog. It might be due to my age. I like the analog approach I like physical controls to get my hands on, and I tend to find these are a bit more responsive. You can really see what you're doing. I don't want to be fiddling. And I mean, it's an interesting point that you make. I do have high, mid, and low controls on here. Which I can play around with, but one, it's fiddly, you're messing around on your computer, whereas I think you can be looking at the room a bit more, and you can get lost in this screen if you're not careful. I think with this you can be paying a bit more attention on real life and where you are without fiddling around with controls on here. The other thing you can do, if you boost everything on here, you're in danger of overloading the output of the laptop. It's a flimsy little headphone jack. If I boost the low, mid and high frequencies, for instance on here, I'm sending more of everything out of here, and that might be too much for this output to handle. Let's boost everything, see how it sounds. It's just about coping with it, but it's a potential problem. Double clicking on these.
What's the master volume on your laptop?
Reverts them back. What's the
master volume on your laptop set to? Is it full or?
On my notes, and well, let's go on to this. It's a good opportunity to go on to this. The last note from that section was don't rely on the venue staff or event organizer to know how the equipment works. I think I've already said this. So let's go on to volume controls, shall we? And then we'll need to race through the rest of it a little bit. Your software or app, I would leave set to 100%. Bear in mind that the volume controls might go further than 100% in your software, so generally set them to 100. Again, if you set them to more than 100%, you're potentially overloading your output and therefore the input. Computer operating system, I would put about 80%. Currently, it's at 64, so I've got a bit of headroom on there. I've boosted it now, and I've got a bit more. It's a little bit more meaty. So 80% on your computer operating system output, 100% for your software output. I've put mixer gain, adjust as necessary, mixer fader, adjust as necessary, mixer master, I would put at about quarter past. For some reason, that knob's not doing anything today. So we talked a little bit about clipping and peak distortion. I haven't mentioned those terms, but when I'm talking about overloading the output here, can we all imagine what it might sound like if I overload the output? I'll show you. It's got to sound something like. let's go to a loud part of the song. It's coping quite well at the moment. Sorry if I'm behind the speaker, so I'm taking a bad example here by deafening you all. Wear musicians' earplugs, by the way. That's what I have for saving your hearing. It's quite a good idea. I won't go into too much detail on that, but do try and save your hearing. It's slightly hypocritical, having just deafened you all. I appreciate. So it didn't seem to make much difference there, but just watch for that overloading particular stages in the chain, because it ends up sounding all distorted and unpleasant. Now I'll tell you how I can demonstrate it. There's a gain control on here. If I push that gain control to the top and now play it, it's still coping okay. It's a testament to modern circuitry. Look out for red lights on the equipment, because that shows you that wherever you're seeing the red lights, that's where you are overloading. At the moment, my master control on here, you can see that I'm overloading it because it's hitting the red lights on there. So I'm gonna bring the gain back, and now it's okay on there. If I turn it up on the gain here, I might see some red lights here, and if I cover your ears, if I turn it up here, you might see some red lights appearing on here. Those red lights, thank you for covering your ears, I won't take it personally. Those red lights spell danger, essentially. Anywhere you're seeing red lights flash, it's bad. Work out why those red lights are flashing, because you're overloading that part of the chain, and it's gonna sound bad, especially cumulatively bad if it's happening in several locations. So we've got 10 minutes left. Let's rattle through. I'm not gonna tell you much about software today, because we simply don't have the time, and people have personal preferences. This is a free version of Virtual DJ, and I like it. One, because it's free, and two, because I've used it for a while, I'm familiar with it, and it does what I want it to do. There's software called Mix, there's software called Tractor. Anyone got any others, DJ software that they've used or heard of? Serato is another one. Google free DJ software for Mac, or free DJ software for Windows. See what comes up, download them, play around with them, see what works for you. Some have iTunes integration, so you can bring your iTunes playlist into the software. If you use iTunes, if you're in the Apple walled garden, great. If you're not, then that's kind of irrelevant. We said before, don't rely on the cloud, because, well, just don't. We talked about reasons why not to rely on Spotify, why not to trust Spotify. There's one bit of software that will integrate with Spotify currently for DJing, but 12 months ago there were more bits of software that you could integrate with Spotify. Spotify changed their terms overnight and stopped you from being able to use that particular software for DJing with Spotify, which I wouldn't rely on anything that has the potential to change their terms overnight and stop you from using it. What's your backup plan? I've got my laptop here with all my music on. What if I do drop it? What might I do? Yes, you've got your USB stick, and somebody might be kind enough to lend you their laptop. I'm a bit funny about lending out laptops because they've got like passwords and things on them that I use them for work. So don't expect someone to lend you their laptop. What else might be your backup plan?
Phone, tablet.
Yeah, and we talked before about the kind of order of preference. Laptop, tablet, phone are probably the best order of preference. But if you're stuck, you do what you got to do, don't you? And if that involves using Spotify on your phone, then fine, use Spotify on your phone. Try and use the download option in Spotify so that it caches everything saves everything to your device in advance. If you do lose your internet connection, you haven't lost your playlist. But I've got 3 laptops with me today. I generally carry 2 if I'm DJing, my main work laptop and my DJ laptop. So if this fails, I've got that, and then if that fails, then I've got that. So think about what your options are for your backup plan. Right, building a playlist then. What things should you be considering when you're building your playlist of music?
People you're playing to?
Yes, who is attending your event, and what they want. You know, what you think they might want to hear. So Tipple Step's a good example. What type of music do people want to hear this evening? You're all going to be here, so what are you expecting to hear?
Death metal.
Right, yeah, good start.
Gangster hip hop.
Gangster hip hop.
Sunday gangster.
Sunday gangster hip hop, subgenre.
Swing, like mid-tempo.
Mid-tempo,
Especially in
bouncy.
Manchester.
Yeah, that's what I like. So let's have a show of hands. Who wants to hear mid-tempo, bouncy swing this evening? Most people. And a couple of variations. So it's good to think about what your main categorization is to start with, and then think about how you might, rules are there to be broken, aren't they? So, bear in mind a lot of beginners, newer dancers are coming to events like this. Do you want to scare them away by playing too much faster music? But at the same time, we have other burgeoning swing scenes in Manchester now, as well as Lindy Hop. People are learning shag and Balboa and blues. This definitely isn't a blues event, but I wouldn't say that's a reason not to play one bluesy track or two in the night. This goes into all sorts of discussions about, what is swing music, what isn't swing music, which subgenres fit into swing, what should fit into an event like this evening, and we haven't got time to have that conversation tonight, but these are things to think about. So yeah, who's attending, what will they expect to hear, and what's the event policy on music? Tipple Step isn't as picky as an event compared to, say, Manchester Lindy. Manchester Lindy is about traditional swing music, and you might hear, if you're very lucky or unlucky, one novelty alternative track in the night, but it's mostly about traditional swing music. Tipple Step's a bit more easygoing, and you can push the boundaries a bit, but I would say it should be the exception, not the norm. I went to an event recently where I learned, when I asked why the DJ was playing such strange music choices, that the DJ was playing music on a Disney theme for the evening. There's probably a few songs from Disney productions which fit fine into a swing evening, but should that be your main focus of a swing evening? No, not unless you build it as Disney themed swing evening, and even then it's probably a bit of a contradiction. So yeah, so swing dance evolved around swing music. So there's a good argument for playing mostly swing music at an event. So think about the music when you're choosing the tracks for your playlist. Does it actually swing? And what does that mean? What does it mean if I say does it swing?
You're not hitting the music's not hitting the beats while it's moving about.
Yeah, so we don't want music that's like that. We want music that's a bit more like that. That's essentially it. It's a bit more complex than that. But think about it. Do I want to swing out to this? Listen to the song. Does it make me want to dance the style of music that people are coming, the style of dance that people are coming to the event to dance to? Be aware of the cultural significance of swing dance as well. Again, this isn't, we can't go into much detail of this, and it's beyond really my ability to facilitate such a discussion. But where did swing dancing come from? Well, it came from African American roots mostly in New York, and there's a whole history lesson. There are many history lessons to be had on this subject, not to be had now. But think about these things when you're planning your playlist. Are the songs that you're playing accurately representing the culture that we're hopefully celebrating by coming and taking part in this event? I would aim for, in terms of music quality, what would you rather hear? Modern recordings of swing music, or old recordings of swing music? Both is a good answer, isn't it? I would say a compromise between the two. find the best quality recordings from the 30s and 40s, and then intersperse them with some of the newer recordings that exist. I like to be able to hear the instruments and hear the music, but at the same time I like to be able to refer back to the history of string music and actually feel that what we're doing is a part of history. We're not just dancing to modern recordings. Did you not have your hand up? Max, have you have your hand up?
When you're like, if you play loads of stuff which sounds kind of modern and then you want to play something a little less, so like, is it basically, does it sound that weird if you switch from something stereo to something mono for a track? It sounds like very...
Most people won't even notice, and it depends how well the sound system's engineered. Some DJs split the output from here so that you end up only with a mono output anyway, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. And I would say it's about mixing things up a bit. I could talk all night on the subject, but don't worry too much about that. I would say it's about having a range of styles within the style, within the genre, thinking mostly about traditional swing music and then thinking how can I push the boundaries a little bit. If I push the boundaries on one song, I'm definitely going to play a good, well-known classic swing hit afterwards, and play a couple, likewise if I'm going to play a fast song so people can do a shag dance, is it something that people can punch at a pinch just about Lindy to, and am I definitely going to play something to follow it up that's much slower and a more moderate tempo? So again, it's about kind of compromises and having a range of styles. I would say build your playlist a bit long before the event in advance, but be prepared to change it on the fly. I wouldn't try and DJ on the fly. In the old days, it's how you had to do it because you couldn't build a playlist. Stuart's nodding. These days, you have the benefit of being able to be organised and come up with a vague playlist before you begin and have something as your backup. And then, by all means, play around with it and tweak it and think, "Oh God, that song's gonna go down like a bag of sick next. I'm gonna swap it for. I'm gonna delete it and play the next song that's on the list." Come in, Nicola. We'll be done soon. We've run out of time, so I'll just read the rest of my notes verbatim, and then very quick Q&A, and then we'll wrap up. Yeah, cool. So, your aim is to provide a seamless stream of music for the attendees to dance and enjoy. In terms of loudness, adjust your levels constantly to compensate for quiet and loud tracks or sections of tracks, especially at the beginning of a song. When a song's ending and you know that another song's about to begin, have your hand here so that if it comes in loud, you can bring it down. If it comes in quiet, you can quickly bring it up. Don't rely entirely on the visual meters. They're useful, but use your ears, walk around the venue. Does it sound too loud or quiet to you? Do the dancers look like they can hear the music properly? Disable all the sound effects on your playout device. Some Macs, if you turn the volume up and down, will go pop, 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 pop. You don't want that. Disable all the sound effects, notifications, whatever, so that anything that you do to adjust the controls on your computer, you're not going to have a Bill Gates style bong when you reach the top of the volume slider. The music should be loud enough to be easily heard, but not so that people have to shout and not so that you're going to damage people's hearing. Between the tracks, leave long enough for dancers to say a brief thank you and then crack on with the next track. Watch out for software that tries to crossfade the songs. That's not what we're about. We're not about mixing tracks in swing music, and we're not about starting the next song before people have finished the existing dance. Let the song flourish, and therefore the dance flourish. Tail off, thank you very much, and then start the next song. You'll get a feel for the rhythm of that. So essentially, your software, the software that you choose, and there are settings in the software for this. You only want to remove any complete silence from a track. You don't want to remove the reverb that's ending on the end of a track. Practice at home, swapping tracks around, learning the logic of your software, how it's going to work. If you're going to need to stop the music for an announcement, how will you restart the playlist? If you press play again, is it going to go back to the beginning of your playlist? Is it going to start the next song? Is it going to start the song you've just heard again? The common pitfalls. Get used to the logic of your software and how it works. And practice this stuff at home. Know your music library so that you can swap things around if you need to. Things don't always go according to plan. Have some spare tracks. If you're booked to play for an hour, have an hour and a half worth of music. Because someone might not turn up. You might need to overrun a little bit. You might delete some tracks. And have a few tracks on standby that you know are good for a birthday jam or a snowball at the bottom of your playlist, so that when the event organizer says, right, we're going to have a birthday jam next, you don't panic, you can just drag up the song that you had previously planned. Any questions at this stage?
Will the notes be available to?
Yes, I'm going to publish the notes and hopefully the video on the event page. As long as no one has any objection to their face briefly appearing in the video, for instance, if that's a concern, then do shout up. Right, what I'm going to do, last exercise is, we'll look on the event page and make sure you get added to the Tipple Step group, which George can probably help you with and Mark can help you with. There's a Facebook group of Tipple Step DJs. Get yourselves added on there, put your names on the rota, and talk to George or Mark if you all know anything more about DJing at Tipple Step. But please come forward. It's not, the good thing about this event is if you do screw up, you're amongst friends. I mean, try not to screw up, but it's a good place to become comfortable with DJing. So that's that. The last thing I'm going to do is reset everything, and as a team, I would like you to make the music come out of the system. And then that's it. So thank you very much. Woo.